I want a company to have to pay you a fair wage for a fair day's work. It's like common sense. But to do that, you really have to do reform of the H-1B and other, it's not just the H-1B, a number of the other visa systems. We made a lot of progress, but man, I would love a Congress. And you guys advocated. Ask yourself, I mean, you have a Senate primary going on right now. This is what I say about getting more involved. Every single one of you should ask those Senate candidates, what do you think about the H-1B visa? Would you co-sponsor the vice president, former senator's legislation to eliminate that program because it's basically just something that big tech companies take advantage of? These are the things that you guys have to do because I can't keep these politicians honest by myself. I need your help. It's a very big job.
Great stuff. So, thank you, Mr. Vice President. We have some questions. I believe we're ready for some questions for
Yeah, let's do some questions from the audience.
Oh, right here.
Okay, there we are. Hello.
Hi, my name is Hope. I have a serious question and then a fun question.
Okay.
So your serious question is, when you were growing up, who was your voice/influencer that helped you see your conservative views? And then for now, who can we look at as an influencer or like a voice?
Okay, so that's very interesting. So, you know, when I was a kid and I was kind of developing my politics, there was actually a radio host, a guy who founded this organization called Focus on the Family, James Dobson, who was really influential to me. And he was just, you know, he was a good Christian guy. He talked about the family. He talked about things I cared a lot about. And I came from a broken home. So when he talked about the ways in which a broken home had a negative effect on kids, it made sense to me because I was seeing it in my own life. And then here was a guy who was actually talking about it. And what I liked about him is that he didn't talk about it in this judgmental way, right? He wasn't attacking a kid like me who didn't have everything handed to him. He was just explaining in a very real world, with a fundamentally Christian underpinning, here's what happens when things are broken. And, you know, when you ask who are some of the conservative influencers or the political influencers today, there are a few people that I look to who I think have very, very smart and wise spiritual wisdom. I mean, like, I think Andrew and Blake and the podcast that they have at TPUSA is amazing. I listen to it all the time. I think it's great. You know, I think if you want a good laugh, I love Theo Vaughn. Like, he's one of my favorite. I think he's just incredible. And he's got one of these senses of humor where, like, 30% of the time it goes completely over my head, and 70% of the time he's the funniest person imaginable. But I think Theo has a good heart. And that's one of the reasons why I really like listening to his show. And then just in terms of, like, you know, pure politics, of course you should be listening to the Vice President of these United States. Thank you.
And then my fun question is, if you could have a free day with 0 responsibilities, what would your day look like?
Oh, that's a good question. And honestly, I would add not just 0 responsibilities, but total anonymity. Because the thing that I love this job. It's very cool. I'm very honored to have it. But what I really want to do, honestly, is take Usha and the 3 kids and just walk to a local cafe, eat a ton of pancakes, and then take the kids to the zoo without anybody knowing who the hell I am. That's what I would do if I had a day.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That's a very nice question.
All right, hi JD. My name is Jacob, and I'm also from Cincinnati. So I get you. I'm with you there on the zoo. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
so.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyway, my question is that there's a lot of division within our country right now, from right to left and everybody in between. And leading up to the 2024 election and Charlie's death, I found that Charlie was definitely the glue that held at least the conservative movement together.
Right.
And since he has passed, there's been a lot of division within our conservative movement, and especially with the 2026 midterms and the 2028 election coming up. How do you think the conservative movement can be united? And if there is a who do you think that could be?
Well, that's a very good question. And look, man, I agree with you. I think part of the division is Charlie's death, because Charlie, as Andrew knows well, and a lot of this was behind the scenes, Charlie was the guy who was talking to different segments of the movement, right? So, I mean, just this Iran thing. Charlie would be the guy who was talking to the people who really wanted to go to war with Iran and the people who really didn't want to go to war with Iran. And he would try to find ways for those guys to work together, even if they disagreed over one issue, right? And so Charlie's absence is a huge thing. And my answer to your question is, who replaces Charlie Kirk? I think it's going to be a combination of people. I think Andrew's got a role. I've got a role. You guys have got a role. And I think the most important thing to remember about how Charlie thought about this is he always recognized what was the goal and who was the real problem. The real problem is not a person who disagrees with you about this or that foreign policy or domestic policy issue. The real problem is the person who killed our friend and anybody who defended the people who killed our friend. And we got to keep our eye on the ball and recognize that those who want to kill conservatives because they have the wrong viewpoints, we need to defeat those people. We need to unite with each other and actually fight together to defeat the real enemy that's out there. That's the most important message. And I'll also give you, one of the reasons why I'm optimistic about this is, even when Charlie was alive, you saw some of these divisions starting to bubble to the surface, okay? And I remember, Charlie died in September of 2025. I hadn't been vice president. I'd been vice president for all of 8 months when Charlie lost his life to an assassin's gun. One thing that makes people in politics sort of divide against each other is just being in power, right? When you have control of the House, the Senate, the White House, and there's not an election around the horizon, it's very easy to forget what your goal is. Well, starting in a few months, we're going to have primaries that are over, we're going to have candidates on the ballot, and we're all going to need to get out there and work hard, because the people who want to kill Donald Trump, the people who want to throw Donald Trump in prison, the people who murdered our friend, and then the people who celebrated it afterwards, those people are trying to achieve political power. We cannot let them, and we have to unite to make sure that doesn't happen.
Amen. Thank you, JD.
Good evening, Mr. Vice President. Thank you for taking the time to come out here. My name is Dane Hoff. I'm originally from the great state of Arizona and proudly voted for you and Donald J. Trump in November 2024.
There we go.
And my question is that many people believe the midterms are already gone for us. I disagree. So what is the game plan to win the midterms, and what's the strategy to maintain the coalitions Trump won in 24?
So number one is, I totally agree with you. The idea that midterms are gone is preposterous. And if you go back to 2018 and you look at the polling picture in 2018, that was Trump's first term. And what it showed is that Republicans were getting crushed in the generic ballot by 10, 11, 12 points. The worst polls right now, the worst polls, not all of them, the worst polls have us down by 5 or 6 points, okay? And what happened in 2018 is that as we got closer to the election,